The Middle Ages are often romanticized as an era of heroic knights, grand tournaments, and majestic castles. However, in this story, you're about to immerse yourself in a completely different and far less glamorous side of medieval life. You find yourself in the shoes of an ordinary land surveyor whose days are filled with mud, cold, endless disputes, and the constant perils of everyday existence. From sunrise to sunset, you struggle with primitive tools, suspicious neighbors, harsh lords, and relentless despair, fully aware that your work is unwanted, unappreciated, and destined for endless errors. This is a detailed, ironic, and gloomy narrative, reminding you that the good old Middle Ages were never really that good. But before you settle in comfortably, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us. Now, get cozy and let's begin. You wake up to the all too familiar sensation of cold moisture seeping into your bones, accompanied by the earthy, musty smell of mold and damp straw. As your eyes slowly adjust to the dim light filtering through the gaps in the mud plastered walls, you remember exactly who you are and precisely why your muscles already ache before the day even begins. You are a medieval land surveyor, and this miserable existence is your lot in life. You lie still for a moment, staring at the thatched roof above, as drops of chilly water drip rhythmically onto your forehead from the morning condensation, cruelly forcing you fully awake. Your dwelling, if one can dignify it with such a word, is nothing more than a single room with a floor of dirt and dried rushes, cluttered with a wooden stool, a cracked clay pot, and a rough wooden pallet covered in a shabby blanket that once held some vibrant color, now faded into a sad hue of muddy brown. Everything here is damp, including you. With a sigh of resignation, you haul yourself out of bed, shivering as your bare feet touch the cold dirt floor. You pull on your worn linen tunic, which clings unpleasantly to your skin, feeling perpetually wet, even when supposedly dry. On top, you tug a woolen cloak riddled with holes that offer scant protection from the chilly autumn air. Your clothing reeks faintly of sheep, sweat, and smoke, an aroma you have long since ceased to notice, though anyone else surely would. Breakfast, if you're lucky, consists of some stale bread and watery ale, but today fortune clearly mocks you. You find only a small crust, hard enough to chip your teeth, and a cup of ale that's turned sour overnight. Still, you gnaw dutifully at your morning meal, knowing full well that the day ahead demands whatever strength you can muster. Your work tools await you by the door, primitive devices that epitomize your lowly trade. A crooked stick and a length of rope knotted at regular intervals, simple, unreliable, and maddeningly inadequate for the task at hand. Surveying land in the Middle Ages is less about precision and more about vague estimates and hopeful guesses. Yet, your task is essential. Property lines are life and death matters for peasants whose survival hinges on every tiny strip of dirt and grass. As you step outside into the morning chill, a gust of cold wind slaps you awake, carrying with it the scent of animal dung, smoke, and wet soil. The ground beneath your feet squelches audibly, thick with mud from yesterday's endless rain. Everything in sight, from the squat huts with leaking roofs to the muddy pathways and the skeletal trees, is uniformly brown, gray, and depressingly lifeless. Welcome to another average day in your deeply unglamorous medieval existence. Your first assignment today sends you trudging through ankle deep mud toward Farmer Edric's land. He and his neighbor have again accused each other of moving boundary stones. This is no grand adventure nor noble quest, just another petty dispute between two miserable men about who owns which patch of wet grass and slimy mud. As you approach the small patch of disputed territory, both men await you, faces red and fists clenched, ready to accuse and blame. Here at last, growls Edric, glaring suspiciously. Hope your rope ain't shrunk again, eh? His neighbor, Harold, spits into the mud, eyeing you distrustfully. He best measure it fair this time, or there'll be hell to pay. You inwardly groan. There is never fairness in these affairs, only mutual dissatisfaction. You stretch your rope taut between two sticks you've driven deep into the mud, the knots supposed to mark precise intervals. In truth, they have long since slipped and stretched unevenly, rendering your calculations as reliable as fortune telling with chicken bones. While you struggle to untangle the rope, you feel cold mud slowly seep into your boots. You ignore it. Wet feet are simply part of your occupation. But you grimace as you realize your socks have holes again, and the sensation of freezing mud directly against your skin fills you with grim resignation. Edric and Harold hover menacingly over you as you try to mark off sections of land. Are you certain? Harold demands gruffly. Of course you aren't, but you nod confidently, hoping they cannot see your hands tremble from cold and nerves. Clear enough, you reply, trying desperately to sound authoritative. Edric grumbles, clearly displeased, looks shorter than last time. Harold scoffs, equally unimpressed. Course he says that, greedy fool. Irritation begins to boil within you, but you bury it deep. There is no point arguing. You tug on your rope again, marking another questionable boundary. The weather turns from merely uncomfortable to downright cruel as an icy drizzle begins to patter against your already soaked cloak. You curse silently at the sky as if the heavens themselves mock your useless attempts at precision. Hours later, after endless arguing and futile measurements, you find yourself released from the squabbling farmers, your dignity bruised, your boots full of sludge, and your belly empty. Lunchtime passes unnoticed. You never had provisions anyway, and afternoon brings even colder winds, biting viciously at your numb face. Your next job is equally thankless. A nearby lord requires a measurement of his manor's lands to calculate taxes. Your heart sinks. Lords are less patient and far more dangerous than peasants. Mistakes in measurement might earn more than insults and angry threats. They could mean severe punishment, whipping, or worse. Your stomach churns anxiously as you approach the imposing wooden hall, surrounded by muddy fields and drab huts filled with sullen peasants watching your every move suspiciously. The steward awaits you impatiently, barking instructions. You quickly resume your task, battling exhaustion and cold, while your rope stretches ever further out of shape. Every foot measured feels like an accusation waiting to happen, every knot an invitation to calamity. Your fingers have grown stiff and numb, barely able to hold your muddy stick straight. Yet you persist. Fear, not enthusiasm, keeping you upright. By twilight, your limbs ache unbearably, your back screams in protest, and every step sends a sharp, frozen pain shooting through your body. You drag yourself homeward, hoping only for warmth and rest, knowing neither awaits you. Night falls rapidly, and soon you stumble through your hovel door, dripping mud and misery. Your home greets you darkly, with nothing but the promise of another damp, sleepless night. As you collapse onto your straw pallet, cold, wet, and thoroughly exhausted, you question the wisdom of your chosen trade. Yet, tomorrow promises nothing better. Another muddy field, another quarrel over boundaries, another day of cold, hunger, and despair. You close your eyes, knowing full well the drudgery and hardship of today shall repeat tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Welcome to your daily life, medieval land surveyor, a sad, damp, muddy joke that history will soon forget. You awaken the next morning exactly as you fell asleep, exhausted, damp, cold, and profoundly disheartened. The grayish dawn creeps through the cracked wooden shutters, illuminating nothing but your damp walls and an equally damp soul. Your body protests bitterly against rising, but there is no mercy for medieval land surveyors. Reluctantly, you stagger upright, contemplating the bitter unfairness of life. As you swallow stale bread crusts that are tougher today than yesterday, you silently curse your fate and your inadequate rope with its perpetually shifting knots. Today, your main task involves resolving a particularly tiresome feud between two neighbors, Wulfric and Osmond, whose mutual loathing has grown legendary in your village. Their land dispute, trivial as it seems, has escalated over the years into something resembling blood hatred. Each year, they accuse each other of secretly shifting the boundary stones. And each year, inevitably, the unpleasant duty of deciding who is right or less wrong falls squarely on your weary shoulders. As you drag your muddy boots through the village, the chill of early winter clings to your bones. Smoke rises sluggishly from squat cottages, and villagers eye you suspiciously, whispering among themselves. In their eyes, you are little more than an inconvenience, or, worse, a pawn secretly working against them. No one appreciates your work. At best, they tolerate your presence. At worst, they openly despise you. Wulfric and Osmond await your arrival in their usual place, a strip of land barely larger than your pitiful hovel. It's a muddy, worthless patch of weeds, rocks, and stagnant puddles. You find yourself wondering why anyone would fight so passionately over something so insignificant. Yet, as you approach, their tense posture and furious expressions clearly announce that, to them, This little patch represents everything. Finally, Wulfric spits at your feet, his broad face twisted in anger, cheeks flushed red from cold and fury. Perhaps today we'll actually see justice. Osmond snorts derisively, arms folded defensively across his chest. Justice? This fool with his crooked stick couldn't measure a dung heap straight. Their voices escalate into a heated exchange of insults, each accusing the other of dishonesty, theft, and even witchcraft. With an exhausted sigh, you attempt to ignore the bickering, unfurling your knotted rope and placing your stick in the mud. Immediately, you see your first problem. Yesterday's rain has swollen the ground, turning the area into a sticky, treacherous swamp. Each step sinks deep into squelching mud, threatening to pull your boots clean off your feet. As you measure, your rope immediately proves its usual lack of reliability. The knots, soaked and stretched from constant dampness, refuse to cooperate. You measure one side and receive one result. Measuring again immediately yields something completely different. Your stomach clenches anxiously, fully aware the villagers are watching closely. Any hint of uncertainty will mean trouble. No good. Osmond growls suspiciously as he peers over your shoulder. You measured it shorter last season. Wulfric shoves forward aggressively, nearly knocking you face first into the muddy sludge. Nonsense. It was longer. This charlatan sides with you. Your protests about the rope's unreliability fall on deaf ears. No one cares about the truth, only about winning their petty dispute. You desperately try another angle, slipping and nearly falling flat on your back as you struggle to remain upright in the filthy muck. This only amuses your angry audience, who laugh cruelly as you flail about like a drowning insect. Several villagers have now gathered, creating a small but hostile audience. They jeer openly at your misfortune, entertained by your humiliating struggle. It is difficult enough to measure accurately in ideal conditions. Here, sinking into mud and shivering from bitter cold, accuracy feels utterly impossible. Frustrated, you once again announce your uncertain conclusion, quietly bracing yourself for inevitable backlash. See, roars Wulfric triumphantly. It's mine. He measured it clearly. Osmond erupts furiously, veins bulging in his neck. The fool couldn't measure a fence post correctly. He's been bribed. They circle each other, teeth bared like wild animals, eyes filled with a primal fury far beyond mere irritation. The situation swiftly descends into chaos. You try to intercede, but are roughly pushed aside into the mud, landing heavily with a sickening squelch. Painfully, you rise, filthy and humiliated, trying to salvage some dignity as they trade blows in earnest. Eventually, older villagers step in, separating the furious pair. You are accused loudly by both sides of incompetence, bias, and deliberate sabotage. You're lucky to escape with nothing worse than bruises and wounded pride. Yet another day where your best efforts result only in bitterness, resentment, and public humiliation. You slink away quietly, boots heavy with clinging mud, the cold sinking deeper into your very bones. Your stomach rumbles miserably, another forgotten meal, while your mind seethes bitterly at your unfair treatment. This pointless, muddy argument has wasted an entire day and accomplished nothing. As darkness approaches, you drift toward the village tavern, a dim, smoke filled room with low beams, crude wooden benches, and stained tables. You find a spot near the fire, craving warmth and some hint of comfort. The tavern keeper eyes you suspiciously, grumbling as he reluctantly serves you thin, watery ale, clearly aware you rarely have enough money to pay. Still, you sip gratefully, the warm liquid sliding down your throat, momentarily chasing away some of your misery. The tavern soon fills with locals who regard you with barely concealed contempt. Your earlier humiliation has become a topic of amusement, and laughter rises as they recount your clumsy fall and the shameful fight. You pull your cloak tighter, trying desperately to vanish into the shadows. Eventually, conversation shifts away from your embarrassment to more familiar topics: poor harvests, oppressive lords, and whispered rumors of banditry nearby. These are the constants in your grim existence, problems that never seem to change or improve. As the evening stretches long, you sit quietly, nursing your ale, unnoticed and unwelcome. Your mind wanders bitterly over the day's events. Each dawn seems to bring only further cold, endless disputes, and eternal mud. You can't remember the last time you felt clean, warm, or appreciated. You rise slowly, drained of energy and resolve. Your boots squelch loudly as you leave, carrying your shame and bitterness into the darkness. Outside, icy rain pelts mercilessly at your already sodden cloak, as if nature itself conspires against you. Your hovel awaits, dark, damp, and cold, the perfect reflection of your own weary soul. Tonight, like every night, sleep comes slowly, haunted by images of angry faces, knotted ropes, and endless mud. Tomorrow promises nothing different, just another dispute, more hostility, and further humiliation. Yet again, you close your eyes, dreading the inevitability of another joyless dawn. This is your life, unwanted, unappreciated, muddy, and miserable. Just another endless argument over boundaries in your bleak medieval existence. You wake up before dawn, shivering beneath your threadbare blanket, your body sore from yesterday's humiliation and the harsh labor that defined your existence. The cold, damp morning air greets you cruelly, creeping through cracks in the wooden walls, mocking your futile attempts at warmth. Today promises even more misery. Your Lord has commanded you to journey to the neighboring village to resolve yet another land dispute, meaning you'll spend the day trudging through mud, braving bandits, wild animals, and unfriendly strangers, all in pursuit of hopelessly vague measurements and equally uncertain conclusions. With resigned reluctance, you force yourself upright, shaking loose bits of moldy straw from your ragged clothing. You lace your battered boots tighter than usual, hoping to keep the mud at bay, though deep down you know the effort is futile. Breakfast consists solely of leftover stale bread and cold, bitter water from a leaking barrel. You grimace at the taste, your stomach growling its protest. Yet, what choice do you have? Outside, Darkness clings stubbornly to the land, broken only by faint streaks of gray on the distant horizon. Your feet sink immediately into the sticky mud, and each step toward the forest road feels heavier and more pointless than the last. Your trusty stick and unreliable rope, the laughable symbols of your occupation, are firmly in hand, ready for another day of mocking your attempts at precision. As the path narrows and leads into the gloomy forest, your mood darkens further. Trees loom menacingly overhead, their leafless branches twisting like bony fingers, grasping toward you in accusation. Shadows hide countless dangers, robbers seeking easy prey, packs of hungry wolves, and even locals who view strangers, especially those carrying ropes and sticks, with outright suspicion and hostility. A cold drizzle soon begins, soaking through your already damp cloak and making each miserable step wetter and colder. Your rope becomes heavy, soaked with water, dragging you down like some punishment from the heavens. The mud thickens, pulling greedily at your boots, threatening to trap you completely if you linger too long. Hours pass with agonizing slowness, filled only by the monotonous squelching of your boots and the unrelenting sound of raindrops pelting your cloak. Eventually, the road widens slightly, offering faint hope that your destination might be close. But that hope quickly vanishes when you see two rough looking men blocking the path ahead. They eye you with undisguised suspicion, their expressions cold and menacing. Lost, stranger? One calls mockingly. His companion chuckles darkly, fingering the rusty blade at his waist. You swallow hard, your pulse quickening in fear. Violence is common along these roads, and you are defenseless except for your pathetic stick and rope, neither offering much protection against even the bluntest blade. You force a weak smile, attempting to appear friendly, though your trembling hands betray your true feelings. Only passing through to measure fields for the Lord, you explain feebly, your voice cracking embarrassingly. Measuring fields? The second man sneers incredulously. You'd do better measuring graves. Plenty of fresh ones around these parts. They laugh cruelly, stepping closer. Your heart pounds as you desperately scan for any chance to escape. Thankfully, fate spares you. Distant hoofbeats approach rapidly, signaling a mounted patrol. Your tormentors hesitate, cursing bitterly, and slip quickly into the forest, vanishing into shadows as swiftly as they appeared. The riders slow, eyeing you suspiciously. Clearly, they wonder why a lone, filthy man clutching a rope would wander these perilous roads. Surveyor, you mumble nervously, showing them your stick and rope as evidence. They exchange unimpressed glances, then ride on without a word, leaving you standing alone once more, shaking from fear and humiliation, the muddy road still stretching endlessly ahead. Your journey resumes with even greater caution. Every shadow now seems menacing, every distant rustle a potential threat. Your clothes are soaked, your body chilled to the bone, and exhaustion gnaws relentlessly at your weakening limbs. Your stomach aches from hunger, a constant reminder of your poverty and helplessness. Eventually, as twilight approaches, you finally glimpse the neighboring village, though it brings little relief. It's merely another cluster of low, squat huts surrounded by muddy fields and suspicious inhabitants, identical in misery to your own. You approach slowly, your boots dragging heavily through the thickening mud, your mind filled with dread over the inevitable disputes and hostilities awaiting you. A local inn offers the night's lodging, but calling it an inn would be exceedingly generous. Inside, the air is thick with smoke from a poorly ventilated fire pit, mingled with the sharp stench of unwashed bodies, stale ale, and moldy bread. The innkeeper, a grim faced woman missing several teeth, eyes you with suspicion, but grudgingly grants you space on the dirt floor for a coin you're reluctant to part with. The meal provided is pitiful, watery stew containing chunks of questionable meat and gritty vegetables, accompanied by stale bread even harder than your morning crust. Yet, hunger forces you to choke it down, hoping your stomach doesn't rebel later. Around you, locals glare silently, their faces suspicious, unwelcoming, filled with quiet hostility toward any stranger daring to intrude upon their miserable lives. Sleep offers no relief. Your makeshift bed on the filthy floor is alive with fleas and lice, tiny tormentors biting endlessly, reminding you that comfort in your world is merely a cruel fantasy. You toss fitfully, haunted by the earlier encounter on the road and the dangers awaiting tomorrow. Every rustle or whisper from other travelers startles you awake, your heart racing from imagined threats. As morning approaches, sleep finally overtakes you, only to be shattered moments later by shouts and arguments outside. You groan inwardly, recognizing your summons. Another boundary dispute awaits your intervention, promising further mud, threats, and angry faces. Dragging your weary body upright, you step outside into a grim dawn. Two farmers already stand nose to nose, yelling furiously about property lines, each shaking fists and hurling accusations. They immediately turn their hostility toward you, expecting miracles from your worthless rope. You sigh deeply, knowing today will be as pointless and exhausting as yesterday, filled with disputes impossible to resolve, and blame inevitably landing squarely upon you. Every step you take sinks deeper into mud, your rope stretched and useless, your spirit nearly broken by endless hardship. Yet you persist, forced forward by fear, poverty, and obligation. Your mind wanders briefly to dreams of warmth, comfort, or even basic respect, then quickly dismisses such foolish fantasies. Such luxuries are reserved for others, not you. Your place remains here, trudging endlessly, cold, hungry, frightened, forever measuring land you cannot truly measure, forever caught between suspicion and contempt. You tighten your grip on your stick and rope, shoulders heavy with fatigue and despair. Another village, another pointless argument, another muddy road. Such is your life, bleak and hopeless, forever chained to the perils of travel on the long, miserable road ahead. You awaken at dawn once again, shivering on the filthy tavern floor, your bones aching from the relentless chill seeping up through the packed dirt. Fleas bite eagerly at your skin, Tiny reminders of your insignificance, but you barely notice. Your mind is already consumed by anxiety over today's dreaded task. Measuring lands for boundary disputes was unpleasant enough, but now your lord has tasked you with surveying fields to determine the taxes and tithes villagers owe, an assignment that guarantees hatred, accusations, and danger at every turn. Dragging yourself upright, you fumble for your boots, caked with mud that dried overnight into hard crusts, making each step an ordeal of discomfort. Your stomach twists bitterly, craving nourishment, but breakfast consists only of the same stale bread and cloudy water that has defined your mornings for as long as you remember. Grimly chewing, you gaze through the tavern's cracked window at the village already stirring beneath an oppressive gray sky, your heart sinking lower with each moment. Outside, the villagers eye you warily as you trudge past, your rope and stick, symbols of their misery, drawing scowls and whispers of resentment. Today, you represent not just petty disagreements over worthless patches of mud, but direct threats to their very survival. Taxes mean food taken from their children's mouths, animals seized from their barns, and coins extracted from their empty purses. Each step closer to the fields makes you feel less like a humble land surveyor and more like an executioner marching toward hated, inevitable duties. Arriving at the fields, you find a gathering of sullen peasants already waiting, their faces grim, arms crossed defensively over ragged clothing. Your lord's steward, a cold eyed, thin lipped man named Geoffrey, awaits impatiently, clutching a ledger that symbolizes authority and cruelty. He looks at you disdainfully, immediately setting your nerves on edge. Get started, Geoffrey snaps, his voice dripping contempt. Make it quick. The Lord expects accuracy. Accuracy. The very word makes you want to laugh bitterly. Your rope is stretched unevenly from constant moisture, your stick crooked from misuse, and your measurements hopelessly unreliable. Yet the Lord expects precision, the villagers expect fairness, and you expect nothing but failure and blame. You kneel in the mud, pulling your rope taut to measure the first plot. The villagers watch your every move, murmuring accusations of favoritism and incompetence even before you've finished. You feel their hatred radiating from each sullen glare, each whispered insult. It weighs upon your shoulders heavier than your soaked cloak, dragging you lower into the mud with every passing moment. That's not fair, a voice shouts from the crowd as soon as your measurement is announced. That's less land than last year. Geoffrey glances irritably from you to the angry peasant. Quiet. The rope doesn't lie, he snaps, though everyone present, including you, knows very well that it does. You move from field to field, repeating your flawed procedure with grim resignation. Arguments erupt continuously, peasants challenging your every measurement, their voices growing louder, angrier, more desperate. Each accusation stings deeply, but you dare not argue. Geoffrey's cold eyes track your movements mercilessly, reminding you silently that punishment awaits any sign of weakness. By midday, tension crackles like lightning. You kneel again to measure yet another small strip of land, your back aching terribly, your boots filled with freezing mud. Suddenly, a rock hurtles past your ear, narrowly missing your head. Shouts erupt from behind you, anger spilling violently into the open. Thief, someone yells. He measures falsely. The steward steps forward threateningly. Who threw that? Silence falls. Villagers glaring defiantly, but refusing to speak. Jeffrey turns his anger toward you, as if your incompetence somehow invited violence. Finish quickly, he hisses, his voice dangerously low, before they riot. Your heart pounds fearfully as you hurry through the remaining measurements, each calculation more rushed and imprecise than the last. Mistakes multiply, villagers' fury intensifies, and your lord's representative grows increasingly impatient, his ledger filling ominously with figures that will doom these people to further suffering. At last, your miserable task ends, though the ordeal is far from over. Geoffrey orders you to accompany him to the Lord's manor, where you'll present your findings personally, a prospect that fills you with dread. Lords rarely accept bad news graciously, and your entire day has been nothing but poorly measured bad news. The manor looms before you, oppressive and foreboding. Guards in stained armor glare suspiciously as you pass, making it clear you're unwelcome even here. Inside, your lord awaits impatiently, pacing beneath tapestries faded by smoke, his eyes narrowed in irritation. Speak, he demands sharply, not bothering with pleasantries. How much do they owe? You swallow painfully, voice shaking as you recite your flawed calculations, praying silently he doesn't recognize their inherent inaccuracies. But his face darkens dangerously as you speak, eyes boring angrily into yours. This is less than last year, he growls, voice edged with barely contained fury. Have you become careless, or are you deliberately undermining me? You open your mouth to protest your innocence, but he silences you with a dismissive wave. The peasants already cheat me. Now my own surveyor betrays me. You shake your head helplessly, knowing nothing you say will matter. He steps forward menacingly, close enough for you to feel his breath on your face. Fix this immediately, or you'll find yourself without a roof, or worse. Dismissed with a curt gesture, you retreat from his presence, humiliated and terrified. Outside, Geoffrey smirks coldly. Better sharpen your skills, surveyor. He sneers mockingly. Or start learning to beg. You stumble back toward your village, utterly defeated. The journey home feels endless, your body exhausted, your mind tormented by visions of punishment and poverty. Night falls swiftly, darkness swallowing the landscape, and you're forced to pick your way along dangerous, muddy paths, each step heavy with despair. Reaching your hovel, you collapse onto your filthy bed, shivering from cold and anxiety. Sleep evades you completely, replaced by nightmares of angry peasants, vindictive lords, and endless, inescapable mud. Tomorrow promises no relief, only further accusations, impossible demands, and relentless misery. Yet, as you stare hopelessly at your damp, moldy ceiling, you know this life will never change. Taxes will always be due, lords will always be angry, peasants forever resentful, and your rope eternally crooked and useless. You have become trapped, like everyone else, in an endless cycle of poverty, fear, and humiliation. With a deep sigh of resignation, you close your eyes, wondering bitterly if anyone, anywhere, could possibly envy your life. A life measured out in ropes and sticks, taxes and tithes, mud and misery, forever defined by your Lord's endless wrath. You wake early, feeling oddly detached as faint rays of dawn filter through the gaps in your hovel's cracked wooden walls. Today is special, or so the villagers claim. It's the Harvest Festival, an event that's meant to celebrate abundance, gratitude, and the grace of survival. Yet, as you rise stiffly from your bed of damp straw, you struggle to muster any genuine enthusiasm. To you, the festival is just another reminder of a year spent trudging through mud, enduring insults, and fruitlessly stretching ropes across land you cannot accurately measure. Pulling your worn cloak tightly around your shivering body, you step outside into the chill autumn air. Villagers bustle around the square, arranging tables, hanging limp garlands of faded flowers, and dragging barrels of questionable ale into position. You watch silently, painfully aware that your presence at such celebrations is barely tolerated, perhaps only slightly more welcome than a stray dog scavenging scraps from beneath the tables. Near the center of the village stands your lord, his usual scowl only partially hidden by forced smiles and reluctant nods to the peasants who approach with awkward bows. Your heart sinks further when you see him glance in your direction, eyes narrowing suspiciously as if merely seeing you triggers fresh annoyance. You duck your head, blending into the background as best you can, hoping to avoid drawing attention. As villagers gather, conversations swirl around crops, weather, and harvests, subjects you have no stake in but constantly suffer for. You overhear snippets of gossip about disputes you recently failed to settle, taxes you inaccurately measured, and boundaries still fiercely contested. The grumbling voices sting your ears, reminding you that every muddy, miserable day of your existence achieves nothing but further animosity and misunderstanding. Eventually, the Lord calls for attention, his voice booming through the crisp autumn air, quieting the crowd immediately. He launches into a speech that rings hollow with feigned warmth, praising villagers for their hard work, loyalty, and supposed unity, qualities he neither respects nor genuinely believes exist. You listen bitterly, recognizing the hypocrisy dripping from each carefully chosen word. And let us not forget, he continues pompously, turning to gesture dramatically toward you, our loyal land surveyor, whose tireless effort, he pauses, an ironic smirk pulling at his lips, ensures fairness and harmony in our lands. The villagers' laughter erupts spontaneously, loud and mocking, filling your chest with painful humiliation. The Lord waves you forward impatiently, forcing you into the center of attention. Your face burns as you move slowly, boots squelching awkwardly through mud that seems always present, even on supposedly festive occasions. Surveyor, he announces theatrically, eyes glittering maliciously. In recognition of your extraordinary accuracy, he draws out each word sarcastically, earning more laughter. I present to you a new measuring stick. He produces a crudely fashioned wooden rod, charred at one end, symbolic of your constant failures. The crowd roars in delight, applauding mockingly, relishing your embarrassment. The stick is thrust roughly into your hands, your fingers tightening reflexively around the burnt end, black soot smearing your palms, a fitting emblem for a year of fruitless labor. May it serve you better than the last, the Lord concludes dismissively, turning away as if your humiliation bores him. The festival resumes around you, villagers drinking, dancing, laughing, their joy emphasizing your isolation. You slip quietly to the outskirts, clutching the ridiculous stick, wishing you could disappear into the surrounding woods, never to return. Instead, you're forced to remain, a constant reminder of incompetence, mocked openly by those whose lands you struggle to measure. As evening falls, the celebration devolves predictably into drunken disorder. Villagers sway unsteadily, shouting incomprehensibly, while children chase dogs through muddy puddles. Fights erupt occasionally, drunken punches thrown over imagined insults, proof that even celebrations in your village always return to anger, mud, and misery. You observe silently from the shadows, weary and drained. Soon, your stomach growls insistently, reminding you that you haven't eaten all day. Hesitantly, you approach a table piled high with roasted meats, breads, and pies. Villagers glare suspiciously as you reach cautiously for a piece of bread, clearly resenting your audacity to partake in food meant for celebration, not charity. You measured my land short, someone growls accusingly, grabbing your wrist roughly, forcing you to drop the bread back onto the table. You don't deserve that. Heads turn, expressions hardening. Shame floods your chest as you step backward, stumbling slightly in the slick mud, hunger gnawing painfully at your empty stomach. Even during celebrations, your inadequacies haunt you relentlessly. Exhausted and disheartened, you retreat further from the festival's dwindling light. The charred stick remains in your hand, a cruel reminder of your failures, your isolation, your endless cycles of mud and humiliation. You sit heavily beneath a barren tree, away from the revelry, watching sparks from bonfires drift lazily upward, quickly extinguished by cold night air, just like any spark of hope you've ever dared feel. Your mind wanders bleakly over the past year, measuring disputes endlessly, trudging through roads filled with danger, enduring cold, hunger, insults, threats, and constant ridicule. Your profession, meant to bring clarity, justice, and fairness, has brought only bitterness, resentment, and pain. Every boundary you've drawn has been challenged, every measurement questioned, every moment an endless struggle against mud and misery. Yet tomorrow, you realize bleakly, the cycle begins anew. The same villagers who mock you tonight will demand your assistance again at dawn, expecting miracles from your charred stick and unreliable rope. You'll again measure inaccurately, again face anger and suspicion, again endure your Lord's contemptuous wrath. The irony isn't lost on you. Villagers celebrate a successful harvest tonight, yet you reap nothing but endless disappointment. They toast to abundance while you starve quietly at the edge of their feast. They claim gratitude, yet show none toward you. In the darkness beneath your tree, you feel tears sting your eyes, though you quickly blink them away, too numb even for sadness. You look again at the charred stick in your hand, understanding perfectly its symbolism, your own burned out usefulness, your inability ever to measure up. Eventually, the festival ends, villagers stumbling drunkenly homeward, leaving only scattered remnants behind, trampled flowers, overturned benches, discarded food. You rise slowly, bones aching from cold and hopelessness. Your feet carry you mechanically back toward your hovel, toward damp straw and empty dreams. Inside, you collapse onto your bed, the charred stick still tightly grasped. Sleep claims you reluctantly, dragging you down into dreams filled only with muddied ropes, angry faces, mocking laughter, and endless failure. Tomorrow you'll awaken again, pick yourself up, and face the same misery as before. Mud will coat your boots, peasants will accuse you, your lord will scorn you, and your rope will stretch uselessly over fields forever impossible to measure. But tonight, you surrender silently, aware there is no escape, no redemption, no gratitude, only mud, cold, hunger, humiliation, and the charred stick clutched hopelessly in your weary hand, forever symbolizing your life as a medieval land surveyor, unwanted, inaccurate, unappreciated, forever measuring nothing but your own endless misery.